Sacrificed everything to raise my sister, but she pretended to be rich and got married into while cutting me off. So, here's the deal. I, 33F, have been raising my little sis, Becca, 23F, since I was just 15. I wasn't ready to be a parent. I mean, who is at 15? But when you lose your parents in a car accident, and all that's left of your family is a scared little 5-year-old, you don't really have a choice. You just do what needs to be done. We grew up poor, scraping by in our small town where everyone knew everyone else's business. It wasn't long after our parents died that my father's side of the family swooped in like vultures. They took everything, our dad's life insurance, his small savings, even the damn car that had been in the crash. All they left us with was our childhood home, and that felt like more of a pity offering than anything else. But it was all we had, so I held onto it like a lifeline. I had to drop out of high school to raise Becca. At 15, I became the breadwinner. It wasn't easy. No one wanted to hire a teenager, especially one with no experience and no education. But I was headstrong, or maybe just desperate. I took whatever odd jobs I could find, babysitting, cleaning houses, flipping burgers at the local fast food joint. Somehow, I managed to climb the ranks, and over the past years, I became a manager at the fast food place. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and the money I made there and through other odd jobs helped see Becca through college. Becca was my world. I worked my fingers to the bone for her. Every cent I earned went toward making sure she had a better life than I did. I scrimped and saved so I could send her to college. Our parents would have wanted that. And Becca? She used to promise me the world. She'd say, "Once I graduate, I'll get a good job, and I'll pay you back for everything, sis." I never wanted repayment. I just wanted her to be happy. But it was nice to hear that my sacrifices meant something to her. But then, a few months ago in her final year at college, Becca met a boy and everything changed. They dated all through college, and Becca stopped coming home during breaks. She'd hang out with Jake and his family instead. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I figured it was just a phase. College changes people, right? Besides, after doing some research, I found out that Jake's family was one of the biggest in town, old money, trust fund kids, the works. They were practically royalty around here. They owned half the businesses in town and had more money than I could ever dream of. I didn't object to their relationship. I mean, who was I to stand in the way of Becca's happiness? If she was in love, that was all that mattered. But I couldn't help feeling a little left out. She used to be my little shadow, always by my side. Now, she barely had time for me. But I kept quiet. I didn't want to be the clingy older sister who couldn't let go. After graduation, things only got worse. Becca moved in with Jake, and I saw her even less. The requests for money kept coming, though. She'd say it was for groceries, or rent. And I'd send her whatever she needed, no questions asked. Although I wanted her to move back into our childhood home. But still, it was my job to take care of her, after all. But the amount she was asking for started getting ridiculous, like, I could buy a car with this ridiculous. I figured maybe Jake's family was putting on the pressure, or maybe her life had just gotten more expensive. I didn't want to pry, so I kept sending the money. Then, one day, I was scrolling through Facebook during a break at work, and I saw something shocking. It was a picture of Becca and Jake, smiling like they didn't have a care in the world. She was wearing a ring. An engagement ring. They were freaking getting married. My heart nearly burst with pride and happiness. My little sister was getting married. I immediately texted her to congratulate her and asked her about the wedding plans. I couldn't wait to see her walk down the aisle. Maybe she'd even ask me to walk her down on the biggest day of her life. I quickly offered her our mother's wedding dress. I loved it and had dreamt of wearing it someday myself. It was old-fashioned, sure, but it was beautiful, and it would have meant the world to me to see Becca wear it. But her reply wasn't what I expected. She told me not to talk about the wedding. That I wasn't invited. I was stunned. I texted her again, asking if something was wrong, if I had done something to upset her. She didn't respond. I tried calling, but she declined the call. My little sister was shutting me out, and I didn't understand why. The next day, I managed to convince her to meet me for coffee. I was so anxious to see her, to hear what was going on. I even took off work, which was a big deal because missing a shift meant losing money I couldn't afford to lose. But for Becca, I'd do anything. When she finally showed up, I hardly recognized her. Her black hair that I loved so much because it reminded me of our mother was now dyed blonde. She looked different. Not just physically, but in the way she carried herself. There was a coldness, a distance I'd never felt before. I tried to make conversation, asking about the wedding, asking to see the ring. She showed it to me but refused to let me touch it. She said my hands were dirty. I tried to laugh it off, cleaned my hands with some wet wipes I had in my bag, but she still wouldn't let me hold it. She didn't even drink the coffee I ordered for her. She just sat there, staring at me like I was a stranger. I couldn't figure out what I'd done wrong. I'd just sent her money 2 weeks ago. I was trying so hard to make her happy, to be supportive, and yet here she was, acting like she couldn't stand to be around me. I apologized, thinking maybe I'd upset her somehow. But instead of calming down, she got even more agitated when I insisted that I needed to meet her fiancé before the wedding. She snapped at me, telling me that I must never meet him, that I must never show my face at her wedding if I truly loved her. She made me promise, and I did, but it broke something inside me. The conversation haunted me for days. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Becca wasn't acting like herself. She was hiding something from me, something big. I started digging into her life, following her college friends on Facebook, trying to piece together what was going on. And what I found out shattered me. My sister has been living a lie. She's been telling everyone that our parents are wealthy, that they live abroad and are funding her lavish lifestyle. She is pretending to be rich, and she's about to marry into one of the richest families in town based on those lies. I understand her now. She has fabricated this entire life, and if I show up at the wedding, the truth will come out. It will all come crashing down. I am currently nothing but a reminder of her real past, the one she is so desperate to erase. If I show up at her wedding, it will ruin everything for her. She'll lose Jake, his family, her chance to live like a princess. All because she is ashamed of me, the same sister who has sacrificed everything for her. I honestly couldn't believe it when I found out. After everything I've done, after all the years of hard work, all the sleepless nights, all the dreams I put on hold to raise her, this is how she is going to repay me. By cutting me out of her life because I don't fit the image she wants to portray. The wedding is next month, and I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to show up anyway, to force her to face the truth. But another part of me knows that would only hurt her, and despite everything, I don't want to hurt her. I just want my sister back, the little girl I raised, the one who used to promise me the world. I've been going over it in my head, trying to figure out where I went wrong. Did I shelter her too much? Did I push her too hard? Or was this always who she was destined to become? I don't have the answers, and I don't know if I ever will. What I do know is that I can't keep living like this. I can't keep sacrificing myself for someone who doesn't want me in their life. I've spent so long putting her needs above mine that I've forgotten how to take care of myself. Maybe it's time I started looking after myself instead. But it's hard. It's so damn hard. Because even though she's pushed me away, I don't want her to get married under this umbrella of lies and a fake life. So, Reddit, lay it on me. Ida for wanting to ruin my younger sister's wedding? Or should I just fade into the background and let her live this fake life she's created? I'm torn 6 ways from Sunday here, and I could really use some outside perspective. Update 1. Holy smokes, I never expected this post to blow up like it has. My phone's been buzzing nonstop with notifications. I can't thank you all enough for the overwhelming support, advice, and even the tough love some of you have dished out. It's given me a lot to think about. I want to address some of the most common questions and comments I've been seeing. 1. Legal guardianship. No, I never legally adopted Becca. I was only 15 when our parents died, so I couldn't. Child services did check in on us occasionally, but our small town being what it is, they kind of turned a blind eye as long as Becca seemed okay. I know it wasn't ideal, but we made it work. 2. The money situation. A lot of you have asked about the recent increase in Becca's financial demands. You're right, it is suspicious. We're talking about a jump from a couple $100 here and there to thousands per month. At first, I chalked it up to big city living, but now I'm wondering if there's more to it. Maybe she's trying to keep up appearances with Jake's family? I don't know, and it's killing me. 3. Jake's family. From what I've gathered, mostly through town gossip and a bit of social media stalking, they're old money. Like, really old money. They own about half the businesses in town, including the bank, the country club, and even the local newspaper. They have a reputation for being pretty snobbish and exclusive. I've never met them, but I've heard stories about how they treat people they consider beneath them. 4. My mental health. Yes, I've tried therapy. A few of you suggested it might help me set better boundaries. The thing is, it's expensive, and with my income, I can't afford regular sessions. I did go a few times after our parents died, but it was mostly to help Becca cope. I guess I never really dealt with my own grief. 5. Extended family. This is a sore spot. After our parents died, our dad's side of the family swooped in and took pretty much everything. We haven't heard from them since. As for our mom's side, they live across the country and were never really in the picture. It's been just Becca and me for so long. 6. My education. Several people have asked why I didn't go back to school once Becca was older. Honestly, it just never seemed like the right time. There was always another bill to pay, another crisis to handle. Plus, the thought of sitting in a classroom with kids 10 years younger than me was pretty intimidating. 7. Becca's personality. This is tough to answer. The little girl I raised was sweet, caring, and grateful. But people change, right? I kept telling myself that her distance was just part of growing up, spreading her wings. Now, I'm not so sure. Maybe I've been blind to who she really is, or maybe she's lost herself trying to fit into Jake's world. I'm still torn about what to do about the wedding. Part of me wants to respect Becca's wishes and stay away. But another part feels like I'd be betraying myself if I didn't stand up for the truth. One comment really stuck with me. Someone said I spent my whole life being a parent to Becca. Maybe it's time to start parenting myself. That hit hard, you know? I've got a lot of thinking to do. I'll update again once I've made a decision about the wedding. Thank you all again for your support. It means more than you know to feel like someone's listening after all these years. Update 2. It's the day before the wedding, and my emotions are all over the place. After reading through hundreds of comments and spending nights tossing and turning, I've made a decision. I'm not going to the wedding. Most of you advised against crashing it, and after a lot of soul searching, I agree. It would only cause more pain and drama, and despite everything, I don't want to hurt Becca. This is supposed to be the happiest day of her life, even if it's built on lies. I tried calling Becca one last time yesterday, hoping we could talk things out before the big day. But as I feared, she's blocked my number. I even drove by her apartment on my lunch break, but her car wasn't there. It's like she's completely ghosted me, erasing any trace of her old life before she steps into her new one. I did get a strange call from an unknown number earlier today. When I answered, I heard breathing on the other end, and then they hung up. Part of me wonders if it was Becca, having second thoughts or wanting to reach out. But I'm probably just grasping at straws, seeing what I want to see. A few of you suggested I write Becca a letter, laying out my feelings and our history. I tried, I really did. I sat down with a pen and paper. It felt more personal than an email, but every time I started writing, I ended up with a tear-stained mess. How do you sum up a lifetime of love, sacrifice, and hurt in a single letter? In the end, I decided against it. If Becca wants to know how I feel, she knows where to find me. I'm planning to stay home tomorrow and try to distract myself. A few of my coworkers, bless them, have offered to come over for moral support. We're going to order pizza, watch terrible movies, and hopefully keep my mind off what's happening across town. To those who've asked about my job, I called in sick for tomorrow. My boss knows a little about the situation and has been surprisingly understanding. I'm lucky in that regard, I guess. I keep thinking about what Becca might be doing right now. Is she having last-minute fittings? Rehearsing her vows? Does she feel any guilt or regret about cutting me out of this huge moment in her life? Or is she just relieved that her embarrassing past won't intrude on her perfect day? A part of me still wants to drive to that church tomorrow and tell everyone the truth. But I know that's just hurt and anger talking. As much as Becca has hurt me, I still love her. She's still that little girl I raised, somewhere deep down. And I have to believe that someday, she'll remember that too. So tomorrow, while Becca walks down the aisle into her new life, I'll be here, trying to figure out what my life looks like without her in it. It's terrifying, if I'm being honest. I've spent so long defining myself as Becca's sister/caretaker that I'm not sure who I am without that role. But maybe that's the silver lining in all this, if there is one. Maybe it's finally time for me to figure out who I am and what I want, beyond just being Becca's sister. I'll update again after the wedding day has passed. Thank you all again for your support. It means the world to know I'm not alone in this. Update 3. Hi there everyone. It's been a week since the wedding, and to say it's been a roller coaster would be an understatement. I've been putting off this update because, honestly, I'm still processing everything that's happened. But you've all been so supportive, and you deserve to know how things turned out. So, here goes. The wedding day itself was tough. I stayed home as planned, and my coworkers came over with enough junk food to feed an army. They tried their best to keep my spirits up, but I couldn't help checking social media every 5 minutes. The local paper's Instagram was full of photos of the society wedding of the year. Seeing Becca in her wedding dress, not our mom's, of course, but some designer gown that probably cost more than our house, was like a punch to the gut. She looked happy, radiant even. And I wasn't there to see it in person. I thought that would be the end of it. Becca would ride off into the sunset with her Prince Charming, and I'd be left behind to pick up the pieces of my life. But 2 days after the wedding, I got a letter in the mail. From Becca. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely open it. Inside was a short note that read, "I'm sorry for cutting you out, but I needed a clean break to start my new life. Please don't try to contact me or Jake's family. It's better this way. Take care of yourself. B. No, I love you. No, thank you for everything. Just a cold request for me to disappear." I'm not ashamed to admit I cried for hours after reading it. It felt like losing her all over again. I was ready to respect her wishes, to try and move on with my life. But then, yesterday, everything exploded in a way I never could have predicted. I was at home, half-heartedly looking at online GED programs. Several of you suggested I focus on my education, and you're right, when there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find an older woman I'd never seen before. But I recognized her immediately from the wedding photos, Jake's mother. She introduced herself as Margaret and asked if she could come in. I was so shocked I just stepped aside and let her in. We sat in my tiny living room, her looking so out of place in her designer outfit, and she dropped a bombshell. She'd known the truth about Becca all along. Apparently, it's standard practice in their circles to do background checks on potential spouses. Margaret had hired a private investigator months ago who had uncovered everything about our background. She knew about our parents' death, about me raising Becca, about our financial struggles. Everything. I asked her why she'd allowed the wedding to go ahead if she knew Becca had been lying. Her response chilled me to my core. She said, I wanted to see how far she'd take it. I wanted to give her a chance to come clean. Margaret hit me with questions about our life, about the money Becca had been asking for. I found myself spilling everything, years of pent-up emotions pouring out. She thanked me for my honesty and said she had some matters to attend to. Then she left as quickly as she'd arrived, leaving me angry. I don't know exactly what happened next, but from what I've heard through the town, it was ugly. Margaret confronted Becca and Jake at their new apartment. There was a huge blow-up. Jake, apparently, had had no idea about Becca's real background. He'd believed every lie she'd told. Now, Jake's family is threatening to annul the marriage. They're claiming Becca committed fraud by misrepresenting herself. The whole town is buzzing with the scandal. And Becca? She called me last night, hysterical. All her lies have come crashing down around her. She begged me to tell everyone it wasn't true, that she really was from a wealthy family. She pleaded with me to lie for her, to help her keep the life she'd built. Part of me, the big sister who spent her whole life protecting Becca, wanted to rush to her help. But a stronger part, the part that's finally starting to value herself, knew that I couldn't. I told Becca I loved her, but that she needed to face the consequences of her actions. That I couldn't lie for her anymore. She hung up on me, sobbing. I don't know what's going to happen now. Will Jake stand by her once the dust settles? Will his family follow through on their threats? Will Becca finally have to face reality? I don't have answers to any of these questions. What I do know is that I'm emotionally exhausted. This whole ordeal has dredged up years of buried feelings and unresolved issues. Several of you recommended therapy in your comments, and I think you're right. I've found a support group for people estranged from their families that I'm going to try. I'm also moving forward with getting my GED. A few kind Redditors even offered to help tutor me online, which I might take them up on. I don't know what the future holds for me or for Becca. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm putting myself first. And that's something. I'll post one final update once things have settled down a bit more. Thank you all again for your support throughout this crazy journey. Update 4, final update. It's been a month since my last update, and it feels like a lifetime has passed. So much has changed, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it all. But I promised you all a final update, so here goes. First, the fallout from the wedding drama. It was messy, to say the least. Jake's family did follow through on their threat to seek an annulment. They claimed that Becca had essentially committed fraud by misrepresenting herself and her background. It turned into a huge legal battle that was all anyone in town could talk about for weeks. Becca tried to fight it at first. She hired a lawyer, God knows how she paid for it, and tried to argue that her background didn't matter, that she and Jake were in love. But when Jake himself testified that he felt deceived and wanted out of the marriage, it was pretty much over. The marriage was annulled 3 weeks after the wedding. Jake's family made sure it happened quickly and quietly, probably to minimize the scandal. I heard through the grapevine that they paid Becca a settlement in exchange for her signing an NDA about the whole affair. As for Becca herself, it's complicated. After the annulment was finalized, she showed up at my door in tears. She apologized for everything, for lying, for cutting me out, for taking advantage of me all these years. She said she'd gotten so caught up in the fantasy of being someone else that she'd lost sight of who she really was and the people who truly cared about her. I'd love to say I forgave her immediately and we hugged it out like in the movies. But real life isn't that simple. I told her I needed time. That I was glad she was taking responsibility for her actions, but that trust takes time to rebuild. She's been staying with me for the past 2 weeks. It's awkward, to say the least. We're both trying, but there's so much hurt and resentment built up over the years. We've started seeing a family therapist together. Turns out, Becca's settlement is good for something, and it's helping us work through some of our issues. I'm not sure what the future holds for our relationship. I don't know if we'll ever be as close as we once were. But we're trying, and that's something. As for me, I've been focusing on myself for what feels like the first time in my life. I started those online GED classes I mentioned, and I'm proud to say I'm doing well. It's challenging, juggling work and study, but it feels good to be working towards something for myself. I've also been going to that support group for people estranged from their families. It's been eye-opening to hear other people's stories and realize I'm not alone in my struggles. Plus, it's teaching me a lot about setting healthy boundaries, something I've always struggled with. My boss got wind of everything that happened, small town, word travels fast, and she's been incredibly supportive. She even offered me a promotion. It's not much, but it's a step up, and the extra money will help with my education costs. One unexpected bright spot in all this, Margaret, Jake's mother, has become something of a mentor to me. After everything settled down, she reached out and offered to help me going back to school. She's been giving me advice on everything from study habits to career planning. I was wary at first, given her role in exposing Becca, but she's been nothing but kind and supportive. So, where does this leave things? Honestly, I'm not sure. My relationship with Becca is still on shaky ground, but we're working on it. I'm slowly but surely building a life for myself that doesn't revolve around taking care of her. It's scary and exciting all at once. To everyone who's followed this crazy story, who's offered advice and support, thank you. Your words have meant more to me than you could know. You've helped me find the strength to stand up for myself and to start putting myself first. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to find out. Whatever happens, I know I'll face it on my own terms. This is me signing off for the last time on this story. Thank you all again for everything.